Hello and welcome to the Health Oddity podcast, episode 142. We are rattling towards episode 150, which means we're also moving closer towards our 2-year anniversary, Pete, aren't we, I think?
We are.
Here he is. Paul's joining us. I've just started recording, so we are going to continue. We are joined again by some fantastic guests this week. 2 guests actually who I'll introduce you to in a minute, but before I do, we will do the usual kind of start up and introduce you to the hosts who we have both other hosts with us now today. So Mr. Peter Lant, how are you doing?
I'm doing outstandingly well this week, actually. I was going to look this up and I didn't before we started. The Brecon Beacons, whatever Brannow Brecon or whatever it's called these days in Welsh, because it's gone back to what it was called, hasn't it? But yeah, I was over there at the weekend, up and down Penny Fan and Cribbin and Fanny Big and back around as well. And it felt really good. It was cloudy. We walked up the mountain, like up Penny Fan, about 10 meters, and then we're in cloud. But it's quite timely, but also it's nowhere near what these guys did. So I'm feeling like it was a bit. I enjoyed it, but it was a bit subdued compared to what these guys have done. So
it was a nice leisurely bank holiday weekend, was
exactly.
It? Not too leisurely. I mean, you're obviously still out walking all day with the dog and
yeah,
but yeah, no, fantastic. Yeah, we'll go into talk a lot more about walking and endurance and things in this podcast, I'm sure. Mr. Paul Bassett, how are you doing?
I cycle up a hill to get back home after work.
Have you literally just got in because you're still wearing your?
I just got in. Just on the phone to the managing agents about health and safety policies. So yeah, great fun. I've got to turn my mind from health and safety policy and fire risk assessments to health and fitness. So.
And being nice and calm and being nice and yeah.
I won't be calm. I'm probably going to shout and scream, have a little hissy fit.
Okay, well, welcome. Anyway.
If you can mute yourself when you do that, that'd be great.
Yeah. Okay, so I will start by saying, if you have not listened to episode 133, which was called The Summit Mentality, where we had the filmmaker, the director of the movie, The Summit Mentality, Olly Loom, on with us. I would go back and maybe listen to that episode before this one, because that was a really interesting episode. And we have 2 of the stars of that film with us today, Travis and Ted. So how are you both doing? Travis and Ted are both on separate calls, separate lines. So we've got kind of 5 of us on the screen, as those of you on YouTube will be able to see. Travis and Ted, how are you both doing?
I've never been called a star before, but yeah, good.
Well, it's great. It's great. Yeah, to be called a star. Wow, I feel like I'm in Hollywood now.
Well, we did actually. I was just talking before we came on, because I did see this last weekend. I saw Travis was in London, I think, with Olly, and they had entered the film into. They entered the film. If you listen to the previous podcast, you'll know they entered it into lots of different film festivals, and they won at the Unrestricted View Film Festival this past weekend. Best director of a documentary and best feature documentary. They came away with 2 awards from the film festival, which is really fantastic news. So we will kind of maybe touch on that with Travis while we're recording this, and find out how that went and that experience. But yeah, I mean, since we spoke to Olly, what was it, episode 133, 10 weeks ago, probably 2.5 months ago, I've been following Travis and Ted and Olly, and obviously how the film's been going, and it seems like it's going really, really well. So yes, so to begin with then, guys, I mean, it's there's obviously both of you, you're 2 individuals, you don't come as one, and you are on 2 separate lines. So maybe however we do it, so we're not all talking at once. But the Summit Mentality, we'll start with that. We'll start with because I know that was kind of a springboard for you both into more what you're doing now. But how did that come about? How was it for both of you? I mean, we heard about it from Olly's perspective as a filmmaker, but you guys were the actual ones doing it, and maybe actually one of you to begin with, just in case someone hasn't listened to the last podcast and just come straight in on this one. What was the Summit Mentality about? You know, what was that challenge that the film followed?
So yeah, basically what happened is in 2020, I signed up with two guys to a ultra endurance event called Snowdon 24, which is a 24-hour relay race up and down Mount Snowdon. And two people I was training with dropped out a few months before. I was like, oh, I don't really know. I can't run a relay with one man. So I decided to put out onto my Instagram, oh, does anyone want to join me for this race? And then we had Travis and Joe popped up, replied to my story. Travis was like, I'm in. I could tell. And then I went through Travis' Instagram knowing he's had his boxing background and everything. And then he came along. And then the documentary basically just follows the reasons why we did it, how it went on the race day, and then afterwards. And yeah, we just started to realize that we all shared this same mindset of that putting yourself out of your comfort zone is imperative to growing your mental health and well-being, really. So we decided to turn it into something a bit bigger, build a community around it.
So even myself, I mean, I've watched the documentary. I obviously did the first podcast with Olly, but did either of you two go to school together or know each other previously?
Yeah. So Ted and I went to school together. We were actually in the same form tutor, but we never really crossed paths like at all during school. It was a weird one. Like we knew of each other at school, but coming out of school is when we really like started to become mates. Really, Ollie said it in the last podcast where I used to own a sportswear company, and then I realised Ted was sort of doing his running stuff, and I thought, oh, we'll do something with him. Went to the Peak Districts, asked Ollie if he wanted to come along to film it, and then from there, just kept in contact with Ted, kept in contact with Ollie, and then Ted putting it on his story for Snowdon really just springboard again for the past couple of years, really.
Excellent. And so the Summit Mentality, I mean, who came up with that name? Because we didn't actually ask that last time on the podcast. I mean, is it the name of the film, or did you have this idea anyway of the Summit Mentality? Because it's a fantastic name. So yeah, how did that come about?
Summit Mentality came about, it was back and forth in the Snowdon 24 group chat, because we didn't have a name. Ted had a name for his old trio, but what was it, Ted?
It was Lads on Tour was the original name.
We were like, we want to be taken serious at this event. So we were like, yeah, imagine seeing that pop up when we win, just Lads on Tour. Everyone loved it. So yeah, it was like back and forth, and then Ted and I had the idea of creating something like a community around it, supporting mental health, mental well-being, and then Joe just put in Summit Mentality. We were like, yeah, we'll go with that. And then Ted and I built the company Summit Mentality, and then from there, Ollie thought, what better name to put on as a film title, really.
Excellent. So that was actually the Summit Mentality was kind of your team name for the event, was it? That's what you'd and that's where that came. And then obviously the film was named the Summit Mentality. And you mentioned there you've got like a company that you've started between you that's also called the Summit Mentality, which again we at the end we'll go through all the social media stuff, because I know that you're on Instagram as, you know, Summit Mentality, and there's the Summit Mentality film and all the rest of it. But so what's I suppose if we zoom out from the event, from the Snowdon event for a few minutes, what's the ethos behind, or the thinking behind, or the big picture, you know, of the Summit Mentality? Because it's a name that can be used for so many different things, isn't it? Events or programs or the film, you know. What kind of sits behind the Summit Mentality?
So basically I'll give a little bit of backstory just to explain it, really. But so basically a few years ago, I'd say 2018, 2019, all throughout my younger life, I was pretty unconfident. I was quite shy. I had a very easy upbringing, quite like privileged, and never really had to challenge myself. Always had it quite easy. So I was like, I need to start doing stuff that's going to be difficult for me and challenging myself, push myself out of my comfort zone to actually develop into a more confident, stronger individual. So that's where like I started a marathon, started training for marathon, did my first marathon in 2019, and then wanted to go into ultra to break into that. And then when me and Travis spoke, we both very quickly, obviously Travis has a bit of a different story because he's been an athlete since a young age. But we very quickly realized that we wanted to help people, especially in a day and age where mental health is such a huge problem in the world now, especially with younger people. We realized a good way to combat that is through physical exercise, putting yourself out of your comfort zone, not just physically, but also mentally. And the objective of Summit Mentality is to support people, but mainly our age, but for all age ranges, is just to encourage people and support people on their journey of going out of their comfort zone, doing things they never thought were possible. And yeah, that was where we shared that mission, and we thought, let's start a community and a company around it.
Excellent. And Travis, obviously Ted just mentioned his background there. Do you want to, and said that you had a different kind of background in terms of sport and things like that. Do you just want to maybe give us a little background on yourself as well?
Yeah. So I, like Ted said, I've been an athlete from a very young age. I started gymnastics back when I was 3-4 years old. Sort of chucked straight into that, hyperactive kid, just went straight into it and let off some energy, let off some steam. From there, done gymnastics till I was about 10 years old. But at that age, I was told that I wouldn't be able to make certain teams, certain squads. Olympics wasn't on the cards anymore. So it was like, as a 10-year-old kid, to hear that news, you're just like heartbroken, shattered. That's it. From there, played football like most British kids, rugby, tried every single sport, just dabbled in everything really. But I went off to university when I was 18. I lasted at university for 3 months, just because mental health for me at university was so lonely. There was nothing really there. I felt like I was drinking so much. I was just going out constantly, waking up at like 3 p.m, missing every lecture, and then quickly realised it wasn't for me. I was still doing sport at that time, but nothing that was pushing boundaries. When I came back from university, I didn't really know what to do. I was stuck in a real rut, and signed up for an 8-week charity boxing match. And then from there, had 5 days a week, solid training, pushing myself to limits I never knew, had the boxing match at the end of it, fell in love with boxing, won the match, and then just carried on from there. And then it sort of sparked something again with fitness. I'd started to realise what I was missing and how much I could push myself physically and mentally. And then, yeah, obviously every opportunity I kind of just want to jump at and take and see how far I can really push. And I think that's the sort of message we wanted to push across, like Sid was saying. It's for people who want to try, don't know where to start, and really just, they're stuck in that rut, and we would just want to help them get out and try something new.
And yeah, you mentioned the kind of the age that I mean, you're both sort of early 20s, are you? Is that
22.
Yeah,
22,
22. Yeah. So you're probably like about the youngest guest we've ever had on the show. But it's really good. I mean, we had Leonie and Michaela actually, who are both in the Team GB, like they're skiers. They went to the Winter Olympics and things, but wow, they're both in their early 20s. But yeah, most people we talk to are kind of like older. So it's really good that you sort of said that what you're doing is you kind of obviously attract your tribe, and you talk to the people who are similar to you. So what's really nice is that you're actually trying to do some of this stuff for people, I presume, who are, late teens, 20s, kind of young people. And it's good for them to have role models similar to them, because we I mean, the three of us are all in our mid to late 40s now. So we're kind of like maybe a different demographic, but hopefully this conversation can maybe get out to some younger people as well, which would be great. So what is so just what happened with the Summit Mentality and the Snowdon event? Just give us a quick rundown of how it went and where you sort of placed and all the rest of it, just for people who haven't listened to the previous episode.
Go on, Travis.
All right, so we'll start from, we went up on the Thursday and done like a little recce, went up the mountain, came back down. First time any of us have been on that path. We were sort of like sussing it all out. You see it in the film. We're like sussing it all out, trying to see like what bits we can run, what bits we walk, completely overestimated like how much we can walk, how much we can run of that route. It's a lot harder than we ever thought it was going to be. Stupidly, it's a mountain, but we thought, oh yeah, we'll just breeze it, run straight up it, perfect, no worries. On the Friday, we had a little look around the rest of Snowdonia, and then came on the Saturday. We like set up everything. It was all set on a football pitch. That's where our like base was, and it was a good like 10-minute walk from the actual start line. From the start, you just come out up the mountain, through Lamberis, up the path, and I don't know how it was for all the other guys. We've all had these conversations so many times about what bit we found hardest, what bit we found easiest, and stuff like that. But the first one, all three of us breezed. Like, we loved it. It was one of those ones where the adrenaline kick when we got down, you could feel like the real sense of buzz that we all had. And then just throughout the 24 hours, that buzz just died down so quickly.
Just started to break down.
Emotions were up here and just slowly dipped. We all had maybe like 20 minutes of sleep each. And yeah, it was crazy. Came round to the last one. Unfortunately, Joe got injured on his second run. So Ted and I both ended up doing fourth, but on the fourth lap, we went together, which is quite nice. I just came down from my third, yeah. Came down from my third, and then they said, right, let's go straight back up it and finish it off as a team. I was like, knackered as I could be. I was like, yeah, we'll go do it. And that was the most painful lap of my life.
So Joe went up there as well, didn't he, for the last one? Did all three of you go up together for the last one? No?
No, Joe had some joint problems.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. I think because we were so fixated, the whole goal when we went was to get 10 laps. That was the goal. We weren't even going to compete or anything. We were like, let's just get 10. That's a nice round number. And they did awards for, if you hit 10, you get the Everest award because it's the same height as Everest. So we wanted to get 10, and sadly we only ended up getting 9 in the end. But at the end, as you were saying about where we positioned, but we get down to the end and we're all basically like hallucinating, dying, broken. And then we hear the name, and the winner of the team of 3 relay is Summit Mentality. We all just look at each other with this face of shock. I'm like, how have we done this then? And then, so end up going on a nice little podium and getting some free stuff. So can't complain with it.
Yeah, so you won the event for the team of 3, yeah? So,
yes, that's right.
Yeah, that's incredible. Yeah, really, really incredible. And what did you, I mean, I suppose it's a big question, but what did you learn from that, from the event? I mean, I know both of you are very much into your sort of personal development stuff, and, you're kind of going to analyze and going to review how it went, and, what were your sort of takeaways from doing that event?
I think for me, it's how far like you could push yourself. That's the main thing. That's the first ultra marathon, 24-hour run, 24-hour anything really that I've ever done. It's showing yourself and proving to yourself that you can push yourself that little bit further than you ever thought you could.
Yeah, I think that's exactly the same for me. I've a lot of the training and the events we do are all based around endurance, really, like going into that pain cave, finding the tools in your mind to carry on going. But then you don't really realize how prepared you are until, it hits the fan, basically. And then there was one leg, for example, where I forgot to eat any salt before. I didn't have a single grain of salt in my diet, and then everything started to cramp. And then it's like in those points where you're in 10 out of 10 of physical and then emotional pain, but you've got to hit time so that the other guys can come through. Sometimes you just click, something happens, your mind connects with your body, and you just keep going through. And then that was a really big moment for me, because on the first leg, I still blew through it, but I still was thinking in the back of my head, this is harder than I was expecting it to be. I don't know how this is going to go, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to push through. But then when you get to that point of, I think I'm going to have to stop here, but then find the tools in your mind to get through, you really, like, that really made me realize it was not just because of training. I think it's something that we all have in our minds, but you never know about that until you put yourself into those situations. And that was really the biggest. I came back from that event, I was like, that's definitely the biggest thing I've taken away from that event. So
it's crazy because we all had that, like, we all remember the point where we thought we were going to break.
Yeah.
Like, we all had that. We shared that afterwards. We knew the point where we were like, this is awful. I want to stop. But it's just showed to all of us that we didn't need to. We could still keep going.
Yeah.
I think Paul was going to ask something. Yeah, sorry, Paul.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to go back to when you were talking about your university. I'm in coming up to my mid-40s. I know James and Peter are the same. So we kind of grew up as teenagers just as things like mobile phones were even coming on the scene. You used to say, right, I'm going to meet you at 6 p.m. on a Saturday, and pretty much everyone would be there because, if you didn't turn up, no one would know where you were. And then things started to change, and we started seeing that, people would cancel last minute, people were able to, social media changed the landscape again. And so you went to university, very much of a generation just grown up with that. And you talked about being lonely. I mean, and lacking structure. And then finding that structure from the boxing, which a lot of guys do. But I mean, I get a sense that this, summiting this mountain and working as a team, there was a real sense of purpose there, which I think is one of, for me, what I was like, where do we find purpose? Because purpose kind of gives us direction. It also kind of sets a fire under us that kind of gives us momentum. I'm just wondering kind of what has been your evolution, and particularly Travis, because you brought it up, struggling a little bit with direction as a teenager and then finding that. What kind of journey do you think you've been on?
I think for me, it's always been, I've always been searching for the one thing that I want to do. I think, especially nowadays, like you're saying, social media, you see all of these people on social media grow up and have these perfect lives. They're sharing everything that they do constantly, and it's like, what am I really doing? You start questioning yourself and what you're doing as a person. I think going to university made me realize that you follow these steps. You go to primary school, secondary school, university, get a job, get a house, have a family, done. I think that's sort of what we're taught. And for me, going to university, I was like, I'm just following the same old what everyone else was doing. So it scared me to a point where then I felt like everyone was on the same path, and I wanted to try and break off of that path. I wanted to try and find something that I actually genuinely enjoy to do, and thankfully found that within the next part of life when I dropped out of university. I think it was a scare for, obviously, my parents were so worried of what I was going to do next.
There's a lot of guys float, don't they? They just go in and they don't have that structure, do they?
No, that's it. So my parents, obviously, they were worried of what I was going to do next, because that's the structure that we're told to follow.
Were you worried?
No.
Why?
To be honest, I think my mind was just so made up at that point where I was more worried of what I was going to do after university. Once I've done those 3 years, what am I going to do next? I've got this degree that says I can do. So I went for a sports coaching degree. I've got this degree that says I'm going to be a football coach. That's it. That's what I was going to do. But really, I didn't want to be a football coach. I think I was searching to be a football coach because I wanted to be a footballer. It was that sort of thing. Constant. What's the word? Yeah, sort of just going back on what your initial dream was, trying to find something else within that initial dream. Now it's just, I've learned to follow a path that's just going to take me to where it's going to lead. So make my own decisions off of my back, not what other people have sort of been telling me within society and where I'm kind of going with it all.
Yeah. And what role did it, because it's an endurance thing, isn't it? Climbing the mountains, work as a team. I mean, what did you come out of that event having learned about yourself?
I think not just learning about myself, but learning about I never knew that putting yourself through that much mental and physical strain was going to have such a tight community around it. Everyone at the event afterwards, after 24 hours, like, we were all so awake at the end of it that when we hit the finish line, everyone there was friends. You were running against all these people, but it was the friendliest community there was. I now, like you said in the last podcast with Ollie, we all do feel like brothers. It's gone through this 24 hours of mental and physical strain, came out of it at the end. We've all had this shared experience, and now we're all living in this one place together with the same experience, the same pain. It was, yeah, it's just a real feeling that you get at the end to know that these two guys have just gone through this with me. That I can now share it with them forever.
Yeah. I mean, I've heard. I mean, listening to a few people, and they talk about kind of some of these kind of bonding chemicals being so powerful. You know, things like oxytocin are just kind of those kind of love chemicals, but then there's vasopressin, which is really released during these times where we need to bond as teams, that kind of pull us together, and that kind of hit of working together with other people to complete something that's kind of not necessarily bigger than us, but something that leads, that we're collectively working towards, is so important, I think. And as you mentioned, when you were at university, there was an atomization by the sound of it. You were there, there's a lack of structure, there's a lack of direction. You're kind of on your own, probably surrounded by new people, new situation, and there was no central guiding path. And whilst, you know, you're saying that, oh, I'm not sure exactly where I'm going to go, but I just have a sense of belief and trust. I think it's evidently doing this event, Summit Mentality, doing the film, working with other people has kind of provided clarity for you, which is really, really interesting. But at the same time, like Edward, you mentioned that you felt like you had pretty easy upbringing, but you've obviously had to draw from quite strong sense of self in order to push yourself to.
Yeah, I think that's through, like, as I said, all throughout my life, I had a very, very easy upbringing. Parents looked after me. I went to private primary school. It was always just looking after. Pardon?
Isn't that a good thing?
Well, it seems like an objective good thing, I guess, but it turned me, I would say, quite soft. I wasn't very confident in myself. I kind of just, anyone would stand on my toes and I'd back off and be like, oh, yeah, I'm just going to float as a feather through the wind of life as it is, you know. And then I realized I really wanted to, as Travis said, I felt it was like a lost and lonely time because you don't feel like you're part of anything. You don't feel like you have a reason. You don't have that structure. And I think the only way I could find structure is by giving myself that meaning and something to do. And then I actually started because I read a book called David Goggins, Can't Hurt Me. And it was all about how if you put yourself out that comfort zone and you work daily on trying to become the best version of yourself and overcome your demons, then you'll find that meaning. And I think it started off with, I realized, wow, I can find some sort of meaning and sense of direction from just focusing on making myself better. So it started off with that, and then finding other like-minded people like Travis, like Joe, and then going through those challenges together. Then bringing that tribe of like-minded individuals together is just that really where it sparked. It's to go through working on yourself, be part of a team that is challenging, and then feel like you're part of that team and you're actually bringing something to the table is, I think, one of the most important things. And throughout our evolution as well, like the tribe mindset, we have to work together, go through hard times together. And then that is where you really feel that sense of fulfillment. And I think that was the first time I'd really felt that sense of, like, I don't know how to say it, but just well-being and strength in myself and confidence was when I felt like I was a worthy part of a team going through something difficult. And I think that's where it all started, really. And going through it as an easy upbringing kind of made that impossible until I took it onto myself to help myself, really.
It's good. Sorry, Paul. I was just going to say that lots of people who, I mean, you see it a lot in society, I suppose. People who are very potentially, you know, privileged and kind of mollycoddled and have everything in life. Sometimes they go into like a bit of a self-destruct mode, don't they? And they go down, you know, into alcohol and drugs and, you know, destructive behaviors, and because they've got everything and they've always had everything. And I don't know why that might be, but I think it's at such a young age for you to kind of recognize that, yeah, the security and the benefits of the upbringing that you had is obviously, you know, you'd rather have that upbringing than, you know, homeless or, you know,
Yeah, of
poverty,
course.
all the rest of it. But then to realize that, yeah, there were many benefits to having that upbringing, but also that in many ways you may have been sheltered from, you know, needing to develop yourself
Yeah.
and parts of yourself. So I think that's really interesting that, you know, like I say, at such a young age, you kind of recognize that and then actively went out to do something about that in a positive, constructive way, rather than a destructive way, which we sometimes see.
Yeah,
Is that the kind of difference between like the structural approach of like society, where we have these set things we do school, we do, you know, variety of levels of school, then we do secondary school, you know, A levels, then university, then you go into a job and then you get promoted. There's a real structural sense, but the structure doesn't necessarily trigger those innate needs for purpose, team, community, a sense of, you know, working with people, being a leader, but also being part of a group as well, and having to shoulder responsibility. You know, I think it's quite interesting, this discussion for me at the moment, because I see it so much, and I've got two younger boys, and the sense of having to put all that energy and direct it. I think it's fascinating to know how we navigate it, particularly as we've talked on previous podcasts about where there's a vacuum, people will take that space. People, you know, like what's his name? You know, the guy just recently put in jail in Ukraine. No, not Ukraine, Romania. Andrew Tate. You know, people like that. There are these role models out there they're speaking particularly to guys who need direction. But you guys obviously found it on your doorstep with other people that you knew, and that community aspect was so powerful.
So in terms of, since the Summit Mentality, since the events of the film and the actual the Snowdon 24 challenge, and did you know before you did that you were going to do something together after that event? Had you already started to formulate some ideas and a plan as to where you take it and what you would do next, or did that kind of just organically happen after the event?
You got this? Oh, okay. Right.
Yeah, go on. I'm talking.
Yeah, so leading up to the event, obviously Ted and I, we've both had previous businesses before, and I think we obviously, with the whole mindset, there's reasons why we're still friends now and own a company together. I think because we're so like-minded in everything that we do, we had a thought about how we can actually bring value to people than just running up and down a mountain. We wanted to start Summit Mentality so that we can not just help other people, but ourselves as well. We wanted to make sure that we've still got the purpose of doing these endurance events for a reason to help inspire, motivate, and show people that they can do it too. Because at the end of the day, we are two regular guys. We're two 22-year-old guys who just like to do events and push ourselves out a little bit further. And a lot of our friends had a lot of interest in the Summit Mentality, Snowdon 24, everything that we were doing. So we thought, okay, now we can start to build upon this and do more events, try and start a community within Chelmsford, outreach it to hopefully one day the world. It's just, social media especially is such a big platform for us that we can now try to get a bit of outreach to spread the message of physical activity can help your mental health.
And I think it's so powerful, because I mean, I'd imagine, like you say, you're talking to young people, to maybe young men, you know, and it's a real positive, empowering mission that you're on, you know. So I think it's full of great stuff. So what other kind of events have you done since? Because I know on a physical level, you know, you've gone on, like you said, Travis, it was the first time you'd ever done anything really endurance based, you know, ultra kind of based. And I know Ted, you obviously had a background of, you know, you've done a marathon and things like that before, or maybe multiple marathons, I don't know, but what have you gone on to do since then on the back of that 24-hour event?
Do you want to
We've
give
done
your list first, Ed?
Oh, sorry, you just cut out. I misheard what you said there.
Go on, you give your list.
Okay. So yeah, we basically after for this year we decided that we wanted to do one challenge every month for the whole year. And we've actually done different ones, but one I've done since then is I did my half marathon. I wanted to beat PB time, get under an hour and a half. So I did the London Landmarks half marathon, managed to do that one. That was actually probably one of the most brutal things I've ever done, even though it's half of the distance of half the things I've done. But also I did a 24-hour run to see how far I could do it. It ended up doing 48 miles. I think it was 48 miles, something like that. And then I'm trying to think of what, because I've done one every month, but that's
you didn't you do that? You did the David Goggins one, didn't you? The 4 miles every 4 hours for 48 hours. Is that
Travis did that, but I just came back from a work trip in Malta and I ate a lot of seafood and was violently ill I had my own battle for 24 hours of food poisoning. God, Travis, you talk about that one because I can't really say much about that.
Yeah, there was myself, Ted was supposed to do it, and then 3 others from some Italian community wanted to come join in. One of them was John, who's actually in film. And it was all hosted at Ted's house, so he had to watch all of us for 48 hours do a bunch of running, wake up in the middle of the night while he is being sick in one of the rooms.
So that's I've heard about this one before, and I've seen quite a few people who do it. So it's 4 miles every 4 hours for 48 hours. Is that right?
That's the one.
So what's the maths on that? What does that end up at?
That's 48 miles.
48 miles, sorry, in 48 hours. Okay.
Yeah,
and but it has to be done in this kind of format of, you do 4 miles. So then how do you settle into, just on a practical level, do you settle into a pattern while you're doing that? I mean, do you do your 4 miles and then, which takes you probably, less than an hour, and then do you then sleep for a couple of hours, or do you just put your feet up, or what happens with that?
You try to sleep. I think we started at 7 at night, I want to say. So after that one, we were all again just started an event, buzzing. We stayed up, played the loudest game of Uno I think I've ever played in my life, just below Ted's room, so he was awake for that one. Then obviously came around, went to sleep for the following 2. The next day we were awake for the whole thing. Hit the second night, and we had to get sleep. But sleep was the hardest part of it all was waking up, because you're waking up to go straight out the door. So it's then cramping, trying to physically, mentally wake yourself up ready just to walk out the door where it's freezing cold. And then knowing when you've done it, it was the best 4 miles I've ever done in my life, because you're on this absolute runner's high of right, this is the last one, I'm just going to go all out and just sprint just so it's then done.
I think you beat your mile speed record on your last 4 miles, didn't you?
Yeah, I beat every record that I had for running on that last 4 miles.
Pure. I saw him steaming it in. It was unbelievable.
And does that have to?
Scared some lady running across, and then she donated.
Does that have to be done at a particular date? Is it done all over the world on the same day? Is everyone kind of the whole of the kind of, I suppose, the whole of the Goggins kind of community does it at one time? Do they?
It's meant to be 4th of March that everyone does it, but we couldn't do it then, so I think we moved it over a few days. But we moved it to the weekend, I think. I mean, I say I moved it; they did it, but but it's the David Goggins event, So you're meant to do it at the same time, which is really cool, because you see all the Snapchat and Instagram stories coming up, and it's just thousands and thousands of people doing it. Some people do it with weighted rucksacks and stuff, as if it's not hard enough already. But one
guy done it for 92 hours or 96 hours.
4 days. Yeah.
I think
sorry, go on, Paul.
For 2 young children, anything that involves sleep deprivation sends shivers down my spine.
That's the worst bit. I tried to do it last year, and I'd say, well, I did 48 miles in 24 hours, and I'd actually say that was easier than when I tried to do it last year, because it's not even so much the distance, it's just the knowing how long you've got left of it. And it's like I can imagine for Travis, you could probably second this, but it's getting back from your run at like midnight and then trying to get some sleep, and your adrenaline's pumping, so you probably actually fall asleep for like an hour, and then the alarm goes off again. It's 4 o'clock in the morning, and it's just, yeah, that's harder than doing it in a shortest period of time, actually.
Yeah, cool. And then did one of you or both, I don't know, one of you or both of you went to, like, was it Jersey or Guernsey? And
That's Travis.
Yeah.
that's Travis, yeah.
Yeah. So again, I ran across Jersey from west to east with, again, someone from the community. Callum, he came along, and we met. How was it? 4 people from a run club out in Jersey. I literally sent this running shop a DM and just saying, I'm going out to Jersey. Is there anyone out there who could possibly want to come join in? We're a small community in Chelmsford. Do they want to come join in? So 4 of them came across. Yeah, they showed us like the North Shore route. Hardest trail run I think I've ever done, and it was not meant to be that hard. We just went across for like a leisurely run, and it's the furthest Callum's ever run. It was 28 kilometers, and it was up, down, all trail running. It was, yeah, we flew in the morning, ran, flew home that evening, then had our screening of the documentary the day after.
Casual day trip.
Yeah, why not?
I don't think I'd have wanted to sit next to you on that flight on the way back.
Oh yeah, no one did. Luckily, we had the whole road to ourselves. I don't know why, whole road to ourselves.
Oh dear. And what's kind of coming up? You know, what have you got? What is the plan going forwards? You know, you've done the Snowdon 24. You've had the film come out. That's doing, you know, that's entered into all the kind of film festivals and things. And like we said, it won a couple of awards at the weekend. So hopefully that will get like a wider release somewhere, and people will be able to watch that more, which is obviously going to put more spotlight and publicity onto you guys and what you're doing. And then, you know, obviously this year you've been doing these endurance events and you're building a community. I mean, have you got any big events or plans coming up, or what does the next kind of 6 to 12 months look like for you guys?
So our next big, in terms of events, again, the next big one that we've got is Snowdon 24 again in July. We're going back to retain our title, hopefully. We want to get the big 10. That's the goal. We want to go back and we want to get the 10, the unfinished business, really.
Who's going to do that with you? If you're going to go for is it going to be a 3? Is it going to be Joe again, or is it going to be
Joe again?
Oh, brilliant. Yeah,
exact same team. We've got unfinished business.
Break the trio.
Yeah. And then after that, our next big one, which we're both a bit nervous for, is called the Berkeley Marathon. Basically, in America, there's a race called the Barkley Marathon, which is known as the hardest foot race in the world because it's designed to be uncompletable. And it's a 24-hour race with 5 loops. If you want to complete it, it's 5 loops, and each loop is a marathon. And you've got to do it in a 24-hour period. And someone's brought it over to Berkeley. Good, helpful name, Berkeley Marathons. And yeah, so that's the next big one. That's as solo runners this time. So that's the next big thing. And I think
that's 5 marathons in 24 hours.
Yeah, so it's roughly 125 miles in the 24-hour period. But it's designed to be uncompletable. But if one of us managed to do that, that'd be, well, unbelievable. But we're gonna go in, give it a good go.
So no one has ever finished it. Or
I'm not sure if anyone completed it last year, actually.
No one's completed the one in England. I think 9 people completed the one in the US.
Yeah,
overall,
and then when they complete it, they make it harder next year.
Wow.
So yeah, that's the next big one. But in terms of so that's in terms of the challenges, I think. Oh, Travis, talk about your high rocks. Yeah.
Does any you know what high rocks is?
Yeah, I mean, I do, yeah, but you might explain it for the listeners.
Yeah, so
things, yeah.
It's the hardest thing to explain, to be fair. It's like an 8-kilometer run, but after each 1 kilometer, you'll do an exercise. So it consists of using a rowing machine, ski erg, a sled push, sled pull, farmers carries, wall balls, and burpee broad jumps and lunges. So I done that the weekend just gone in London for it was their biggest High Rocks event. And you could do it as a solo, as a duo, or a team relay. And I done it with someone who goes to the gym that I work at, and we were in the 30 to 39 age category, which is like the most popular age category for the event. And we came 7th in our age category and 13th overall. So we've qualified for the World Championships in Manchester in 3 weeks' time.
Wow. So did you go into the 30 to 39 age group because your partner was in that age group? So you had to go in that one? Yeah.
So he can't be up a few years.
Oh, that's great. Was that at Excel? Was it in London? Was that?
No, that was London Olympia.
Oh, Olympia. Okay, no, because I know quite a few people who've done them and do them. So I saw quite a lot of photos and things going on. Yeah. In fact, I think Mark Lewis we had Mark Lewis on the podcast, didn't we? Pete and Paul. I think he did it at the weekend again. Who's very good at them. Yeah, I think he did it. Fantastic. So when's the one in Manchester that you got? Sorry,
26th of May.
26th. Oh wow. So it's not far away this month.
No,
yeah.
not long at all. 26th, 27th of May. Just quite cool. Quite excited for it.
Brilliant. Oh, that's fantastic. That's really good. No, that's great. So I suppose if people have listened to the first podcast with Olly, if people have listened to this podcast and want to kind of maybe follow you guys and what you're doing going forwards, after, as well as the film and after the film, what's kind of the best way for which way do you kind of put most content out there, and what's the best way for people to kind of follow you now?
So if you want to follow us, our best place to go is our Instagram. That's where we focus most of our content on, and that's Summit Mentality Official is the name of the Instagram. And but if you really want to get involved in person and you're around Chelmsford or Essex, come to the Run Club. It's every Thursday, 7:30 p.m. in Central Park, Chelmsford, and it's great community. It's lovely. It's just we do a 3 kilometer and a 5 kilometer route, and everyone there is talking. It's great. It's just great to have seen people come up at the beginning who couldn't run before, and they do the 3K and they walk the 3K, and now they're running the 5K like a couple months down the line, and that sense of camaraderie is great. So if you want to follow us online, the Instagram, Summit Mentality Official, but if you want to get involved in person, come to our Run Club. Just go to our website, summitmentality.com. So
excellent. And how do you do that then? Does one of you lead the 3K and one of you lead the 5K, or?
So they're on the same route. So
okay.
Yeah, as you run, you'll see a turn point for the 3K. So you just turn around there. For the 5K, either myself or Ted will lead it off. One of us will be behind, just making sure that everyone's okay. And we try and make our way up and down the group as much as we can, so we can have a chat with everyone, really.
Oh, that sounds fantastic. And especially this sort of time of year. I mean, this podcast will be going out kind of middle of May, I think. So it's kind of going into, those lovely evenings that we're going to have, in June and July and August. So yeah, hopefully some people will be listening to this and we'll come down and meet you. But if they follow you, like we said, Summit Mentality Official on Instagram, then you'll be able to see all the details and things on there. That's fantastic. And then each of you individually as well. I know you're both on Instagram individually as well, aren't you? What are you on as, Travis?
So my Instagram is just Travis Owls. So OWLES is my last name.
Travis Owls, cool. And Ted?
Mine's Ted Stroud Does Things, because I haven't quite confirmed what I'm actually doing. Yeah, so
Ted Stroud Does Things.
Does Things, yeah. That's the one.
Excellent. No, that's great. Right, it was lovely catching up with you both, really, and obviously having seen the film, having spoke to Olly, and then obviously still in touch with, following everything that he does, that the film's doing, and that you guys do. It was just really, really good to talk to you and catch up with you in person. Pete, is there anything you'd like to say, or anything to wrap up as we start to close?
I've written quite a bit down, so I'll pick one. Yeah, no, it was just I found a couple of things were interesting. I think when Travis said that the enthusiasm waned after the first lap, you went up to the top, come back down, and you're like, that was brilliant, and then it kind of disappeared after that.
Yeah.
I think that's what happens with people when they start out on something, don't they? They're all in and like, I'm going all in. And then after a couple of weeks, it can kind of drop off. But then what I had after that was what you were talking about with the accountability. I think Ted was talking about this, about the accountability to the team rather than just yourself. Because if you were doing it on your own, it's like, well, I could give up anytime I want, can't I? But if you give up, the rest of the team suffer. So I thought that was really interesting. So the whole thing about accountability and keeping that enthusiasm, even going through a pain cave. So yeah, I just thought that was brilliant. So thanks. Yeah, it's great.
Thank you.
Excellent. Mr. Paul Bassett, any thoughts as we start to wrap up?
Got me thinking, we're always talking about being really fit into old age. But Ted, perhaps you could have on your gravestone, Ted did things.
Ted did things. I'll get that written down. I'll let the parents know just in case.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it was great. Really good, very interesting conversation, and shows you the power of doing things, doesn't it? To kind of sit around on our armchairs, kind of complaining nothing's going right. Actually, just got to get out there and do something, and then who knows where it'll take you? It's obviously it was a kickstart. Just start taking action, and then before you know it, once you start taking action, you just find opportunities to kind of excel and experience, don't you? Rather than just sitting around waiting for it to happen to yourself.
Absolutely.
No, I think it's thanks, guys. I mean, it's so good as well to see, a couple of, I know sometimes young people get a bit of a hard rap sometimes, don't they? And you probably know more than me, in this day and age. But I think to see you guys taking something so, and leading from the front and being so positive and so constructive and so community minded as well, I think is a huge positive. So yeah, well done to both of you. And we'll obviously continue following and seeing what comes next. But it's been an absolute pleasure having you on as a guest. So thank you to both of you.
Cheers.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for having us on.
Brilliant.
Yeah, thank you very much. Really enjoyed it. So
excellent. So thank you so much for everybody listening. Please do like, share, subscribe, follow us on Instagram and Facebook, subscribe on YouTube to us, and do like and share. And if you have anyone that you think this might be helpful for, especially maybe like young people who you may know, maybe your children. I know a lot of our listeners are in their sort of 50s and 60s, so you may have children or grandchildren who are kind of teenagers in their 20s who this sort of thing might be really helpful for. It'd be really good to share this and point them in the direction of Ted and Travis and what they're doing. We will be back next week for episode 143. So until then, take care and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.